acceptable to me. Or some people have a habit of touching your shoulder, this and that. This and that is, you can always judge what this and that. Some people they have a habit of using profane language. They would remember their mothers and daughters too often, along with their sisters. They will punctuate every sentence with certain objectionable words. And no matter how much you tell them that tere ghar mein baap bhai nahi hai, they don't take the hint, right? So, sexual comments about a woman. For example, see, sometimes we all want to have that very lively. I love the atmosphere that you have. I wish we had such colorful. For me, the height of excitement is a colorful blazer, and that too in muted colors. I'm like, okay, I am feeling alive today, right? For all the lawyers, I'm sorry, no pun intended. For all the lawyers, black and white are the two colors, and we just don't understand ke beech ke bhi bandwidth hoti hai. But anyways, you have to understand that every workplace has a certain decorum or a certain protocol. Now, despite telling the other person, and then probably you have a different sort of a personal space that you require as compared to other people. You're not so cool with people using casual remarks against you, like, "Arey, aaj to badi sexy lag rahi ho." You're like, what the hell does that mean? And maybe the other person does not know that you don't conform to the casual workplace. But you have told him that, look, I find this a little uncomfortable. So till the time we have that kind of a, relationship, or we are comfortable with each other, can you just refrain from? Sometimes the problem also is that women feel bad about pointing out this behavior because they don't want to be in anybody's bad books. First of all, I want to know where all the books are kept. When people tell me, मैं इसकी good book में जाना चाहती हूँ, मैं इसकी bad book में जाना चाहती हूँ, I'm like, where are these books, yaar? I can't see anybody carrying them around. So you have to, when you talk about empowering yourself, you also have to take the risk. I mean, even though for me it's not a risk at all, because it's just like saying, आज मुझे भूख लग रही है. So you have to be clear enough to say कि भाई मुझे तेरा ये behavior अच्छा नहीं लग रहा. Yeah, if you are outgoing, you can just say कि भाई क्या हुआ, तू रोज मुझे compliment करता है, आज तो तूने करा ही नहीं. See, honesty will solve so many problems for you, right? So you are every day in your mind fuming over the thing that, yaar, इसने मुझे आज फिर, अजीब तरीके से compliment करा है. Why can't you just tell that guy instead of telling the hundreds of other people in the office, hoping that they will go and tell him, right? Why would anybody fight your battles for you? Nobody does that anymore because they're too busy doing their own thing or watching porn. Anyways, so sending equally sexually explicit messages. Well, understand that you can do this in private, but not to everyone, especially if they are finding it offensive. Now, what happens is that, let's say that there are, I'm not showing these small videos to you because I think you've seen enough of them in your professional arena. Whatever I show, I'm sure you've already seen. So you're like, "Arey yaar, khatam karo." That's why I'm forwarding them through. I'm telling you the gist of things. Now, as far as sexual harassment is concerned, we've already identified, kind of tried to identify that, well, unsaid can also be harassing. Primarily, there are two types of sexual harassment. One is quid pro quo, which is basically this for that, adan pradan. So when your senior tells you that, well, if you want a raise, you will have to do this. If you want that I should not penalize you or kato your chutti, you will have to do this. So this is basically a clear-cut business transaction that is happening. Now this would necessarily have to be a sexually asked for favor, right? That would be quid pro quo. Then there is a hostile environment where it is not necessary that that kind of harassment is actually categorically against you per se. It might be an environment that is created by the conduct of the accused in such a way that बस गेहूं के साथ घुन पिस गया types. You know what? कि मैं तो रास्ते में आ गई, ट्रेन चल रही थी. So that hostile environment has been created in such a way that maybe the rest of the women have tried to kind of come to terms with it and say कि भाई ये तो होता ही है. It's like going to Lajpat Nagar on a busy Saturday and people brushing past you, touching you, you know that is an improper touch, but you're like, यार ये तो होता ही है, अब क्या करें, दुनिया में आए हैं तो जीना ही पड़ेगा. You tell yourself and you move on. And on the other hand, there is that woman who would say कि नहीं नहीं आज तो मैं इसको ज़िंदगी का मज़ा चखाऊंगी. ऐसे थोड़ी, we are not public property that anybody can wipe their feet off us and move ahead. You know what I mean? So it's a hostile environment. not necessarily levied against you, but at the same time maybe categorically against you. How? Let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you a story. Now there is a senior in an office and he has a junior who's not reporting to him. So what he does is he comes to the office at 10 every morning, and at 10:30 sharp he calls that junior to his cabin. Now the cabin has शीशे का walls and everything, so it's not like, I mean, you can't say कि बंद दरवाजे के पीछे क्या हो रहा था. So there is a certain level of privacy also. At the same time, if somebody shouts, people can make out. Or if somebody tries to run away, people can make out from outside. So he does nothing. He just calls her every day at 10:30 sharp, makes her sit in his cabin for maybe an hour and a half, and then just says, "अरे चलो अब कल बताऊँगा." So this thing goes on and on for 2-3 days. People start asking her, "अरे आजकल रोज सर तेरे को क्यों बुला रहे हैं?" The girl says, "Well, I have no idea and I find it very strange because, you know, I just sit there and he tells me to sit in front of him. I just sit there." Now the people are like, "अच्छा हम ही मिले हैं." You know what I mean? Now this goes on again for a week. And the people are now more insistent. Well, कि क्या हो रहा है यार, हमें भी बता दो. कहीं hiring firing का कोई सीन तो नहीं है? कहीं तुम सर की जासूस तो नहीं हो? She says, "I'm telling you honestly, nothing happens." Again for 10 days, the same procedure, nothing happens. Now this girl files a complaint against the senior. All the lawyers say that इसमें तो कोई case ही नहीं है, because the IC also refuses to accept her case. कि इसमें क्या हुआ है? Sexual harassment कैसे है? But she says, "No, I find it very intimidating because I keep requesting him and there is nothing. He just makes me sit there, do nothing for an hour and a half every day." Then she finally finds a lawyer who says, "Well, yes, this is disturbing." You understand why how disturbing it is, because not only is it hampering her mental peace, but it is also creating a doubt amongst her co-workers as to her own credibility, character, and, you know, whether there is some wrongful intent in her mind, this and that. And despite her asking the senior again and again कि सर आप मुझे बताओ तो सही कि क्या प्रॉब्लम है, आप नहीं बता रहे हो. So well, whether this would be coming within the parameter of sexual harassment or not would depend upon how good a lawyer you have, because it's neither here nor there. It's very difficult for anyone to make another person understand कि इसमें सेक्स क्यों, उन्होंने क्या आपको छुआ था? नहीं. क्या उन्होंने आपको कोई प्रपोजल दिया था? नहीं. तो क्या करा था? कि कुछ नहीं. तो अच्छा आप क्या चाहती हो कि कुछ हो जाए? You understand the line of questioning that she would come across. So again, there is no word in this world that will be the point blank definition of sexual harassment. We can just kind of guide you through a maze and tell you that, okay, this, if this is there, then it can be called sexual harassment. Whether it is or not would depend on the sixth sense of every woman. Now there are certain myths that harassment always occurs between a man and a woman. We have already discussed that that is not so. It can occur between any gender. Or harassment requires touching. Well, of course not. Now we have more refined ways of harassing each other. It was a compliment, not harassment. No matter how much you say that I was just trying to compliment you and this is my style, if the woman says that it is harassment, then it is. The only thing that she needs to clarify is that if she files a complaint, the first question that would be asked from her is that did she clarify to the person that his conduct was not acceptable or welcome? So, well, if she says no, I did not clarify, but I thought it would be obvious, well, then there is a room for doubt and the person might get away with just a warning. If you want to ensure that you're going for redressal and if you want certain punishment to be met out to the person, it always pays to caution him once, twice, and then file a complaint. Because then he says कि हमें क्या पता उसको offensive लगा. She always used to say thank you and smile. So I thought, well, it was welcome, because sexual harassment is any unwelcome physical or verbal conduct. So how do you show the other person that it is unwelcome, right? By saying it outright. Or the behavior must be repeated in an order. Now another problem is that some people feel कि एक ही बार तो यार हमने इसको किस करने की कोशिश करी थी यार, ऐसा भी क्या हो गया यार, मतलब can you imagine telling someone कि एक ही बार तो रेप करने की कोशिश करी है, क्या हो गया यार, accept कर लेती यार. Can you imagine? The other day I was watching this video of that Nirbhaya accused, and his stance was that के इनको मज़ा चखाने के लिए हमने करा था महिलाओं को, अगर ये शांति से रेप करा लेते तो हम इसे डाल के कहीं चले जाते, क्योंकि इसने हाथ पैर चलाए इसलिए इसके साथ ये हुआ. Now this is the kind of mentality that we don't know how many people are, you know, having that mentality. You can't really go into the depths of everybody's mind, and mind is such a tricky thing, you know. Today it is something and tomorrow it is something else altogether. If there is one thing that I can never judge apart from my own size is somebody's mentality, right? So it always pays to be over cautious as far as women are concerned in India today, or for that matter in any part of the world. Then only female can get sexually harassed. Well, I would say from the kind of cases that I get that is absolutely wrong. Any gender under the stars can get sexually harassed. When we start with the Vishakha versus state of Rajasthan, which was way back in 1997, we have now come to Aurelio Fernandez versus state of Goa. Now this was, I think, last year, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it was sometime in 2023-22. Again, basically a reiteration of whatever was said by the Supreme Court in Vishakha. It is still happening. We have come a long way in the sense that now people actually know that there is something called sexual harassment of women at workplace. At that time, "Arey ye kya hota hai?" types. You know, just like domestic violence was kind of, I mean, I had a case once where this woman was really fed up with her husband, and she had come to me basically asking for maintenance. As I was conversing with her, I realized that her husband was into wife beating every night. He used to come home drunk and beat her. And I was really amazed. I said, your first concern is maintenance? I mean, are you not bothered about the fact that he beats you? She's like, nahi, mujhe nahi marega to kisko marega? And I found that shocking, because, you know, sometimes we normalize certain behavior so much that if that is not happening to us, we are like, "Arey, kahin ye kisi aur ko jaake to nahi maar raha?" And we find that we are kind of being cheated. That is the kind, because that lady had grown up in a house where her father used to beat her mother. She had grown up in a house where her sister-in-law was beaten by her brother. So now when she comes to a house where her husband is beating her, she's like, okay, to hota hi hai. So she's like kind of mentally preparing herself throughout the day कि आज ये रात को मुझे पीटेगा, and then I have to go to my job tomorrow, which is maybe cleaning someone's home, washing someone's utensils. So I'm not saying that these kind of offenses do not happen in the higher hierarchy of the society. They do, but at that point of time we do realize that it is wrong. At the same time, for whatever reasons, we learn to hide the marks. That is the only difference I would say there is. Now, what is POSH? What does workplace include? What is sexual harassment? What is the aim and objective? What do you think is the workplace? Now, suppose, now this is your workplace, that much is clear. Irrespective of whether you are a permanent employee, an ad hoc, a temporary, an intern who gets no salary, you would still be covered under the POSH Act. Even the people who visit you for their work, the cleaning lady who comes here, or the cleaning boy who comes here, I mean, he would not be covered under POSH, but if he is harassing someone, Act would be applicable to him. All these people are covered under the POSH Act. The aim and objective, to make a safe working space for all the genders. How do we make it safe if it is woman-centric? By ensuring that men are aware enough to realize that this particular behavior from them can be coming under the category of sexual harassment, and ensuring that they do not repeat it. Now, so first, this POSH Act is the first legislation specifically addressing the issue of workplace sexual harassment. Before that, like I said, there was nothing. In fact, it was only after the enactment of this particular act that there were certain amendments that were introduced even in the criminal law. Even in IPC, certain sections were introduced, 354 ABCD, which talked about penalizing offenses like stalking, voyeurism, molestation of women, all these. Before this, there was nothing. So if you wanted to stalk anyone, well, you can go ahead and do it. There was not even an offense under which you would be booked, because stalking was not recognized as an offense at all. Now we are, of course, at a stage where we are recognizing not only physical stalking but also online stalking, which is a big thing today. So what is sexual harassment at workplace? Offering benefits, wrongfully offering benefits for sexual favors, any unwanted conduct, any threat, well, if you don't do this to me, I will do this to you. Any kind of unwanted visual conduct which may include suggestive gestures, any verbal conduct which is unwanted or unwelcome, any physical conduct which is unwanted and unwelcome. So it has been enacted with the object of preventing, protecting women against workplace sexual harassment and to ensure effective redressal of complaints of sexual harassment. Basically, to create an atmosphere where any problem that you have, you can go to your employer or the IC committee and get it redressed right then and there instead of mulling over it and feeling helpless. Now, under this act, what are the do's and don'ts? Now, all the meetings take place during the office hours. Now, one of the basic, you have to, now we all know Ela or Ina, what's that lady's name? Somebody who has passed away because of excessive, Anna, right? We all know that somewhere down the line, I used to really feel proud of the fact that, you know, how the world has adjusted to the COVID thing. Overnight, it seemed as if the online thing has come up. There were platforms. Now, we are also very glad because there are cases where you are just unable to reach the code and then you can, present your case on the online mode. Plus, the clients always used to feel कि पता नहीं ये lawyer गया भी या नहीं गया. Now they have proof in front of their eyes. But one thing that is the dark cloud to this silver lining has been that the work-life balance has completely gone away. So even though your employer can say, well, तुम्हें आना थोड़ी पड़ रहा है, you know, you're just online, there is no 9 to 5 anymore. तो 6 बजे भी you are logged in, अगर रात को 12 बजे भी एक mail आता है, you're supposed to answer. And then a lot of cases that I started getting were on the lines of, आप camera on करो, camera on करो. Now that woman might not be camera ready, or it might be out of office hours. So how can you force her to switch on her camera? Right? Or maybe you have switched on your camera and you are not appropriately dressed, or there is some image in your background that she finds offensive. So all these things, you know, you have to realize that any meeting that you do, it should be within the office hours. All the employees, all the co-workers should endeavor to speak in a polite manner, in a decent manner. And you have to understand that, you know, you have to learn to make eye contact with people instead of looking suggestively at their certain body parts. That is one way of grooming yourself. Keep your hands to yourself. Speak up and tell them no. If you find something offensive, you have to tell them. Maybe they feel that you don't find it offensive and you like it. So they'll keep doing it, and I wouldn't blame them then, right? Employees, especially male colleagues, should not video or voice call their female colleagues after work hours. Sharing any inappropriate video or audio content without anyone's permission. Keep staring at a woman's chest while talking. Abuse or make sexual or derogatory remarks about female colleagues. Touching inappropriately areas like back, shoulders, or for that matter, any body part. Now, who can file under a complaint under the Posh Act? Now, this has been very, very, I wouldn't say controversial, but I think this is one aspect that is really talked about, and people really don't have an answer to what the actual answer is. So what happens is that a person says that, well, I am a male, but I have a problem with my senior who happens to be a male or female or whatever, and I want to file a complaint under the Posh Act. Well, the sad part is that as of now, this act is not gender neutral. It categorically says that only a female can file a complaint, but law is developing now, and hopefully in the future, it would be made gender neutral. Most of the organizations have made their sexual harassment policies gender neutral. So that ways men are covered in the sense that, well, they can't file their complaint under the Posh Act with the IC, but they can go to the HR, like I said. Another thing is that the complaint has to be in writing. It has to reveal the name of the complainant, has to be duly signed by her. It has to reveal the name of the accused, and it cannot be on behalf of someone. Like, I can't be a social warrior and file a complaint on my co-worker's behalf saying, I have seen Miss X feeling very uncomfortable by Mr. Y's behavior, and thereby I am filing this complaint against Mr. Y. Well, it will be simply filed, and it being an anonymous complaint or being a complaint not by Miss X, it cannot be worked upon by the IC at all. IC as of now also does not have the power to take the complaint suo moto. Like, if you know, all of you, how the Supreme Court took up the Kolkata case suo moto, right? There was no petition that was filed as such, but that is Supreme Court. The IC does not have that power. So a proper complaint drafted and signed by the complainant has to go to the IC in order for the IC to take it up under the IC inquiry. Where do you report? You report to the internal committee. Now, section 4 of the Act requires that any place that has at least 10 workers will have an IC committee. Any place that does not have 10 workers, and if there is a complaint from there, then it goes to the local complaint committee that is there in every district. Every IC has to have one presiding officer, which necessarily needs to be a woman. It needs to have 2 other employees who are active in the field of social work and who know about women related laws. And then the 4th person is going to be an external member who is either an NGO person or a lawyer who has been working in women centric laws. So at least 4. It can be more than 4, but there is the requirement of a minimum 4. If you find it difficult to file a complaint in the IC, you can also go to the SHE box, which is there. It's the initiative of government, which is sexual harassment e-box basically. So you file your complaint over there. If you Google it, you will find a window like this that pops up. So it's not like it's another IC. They will categorically take up your complaint and forward it to your organization and ensure that it is followed upon. Now, what is the procedure to file a complaint? Like I said, it should be in writing. The most important thing for a sexual harassment complaint is there is a strict timeline. It has to be filed within 3 months of the last incident that was reported. So if you tolerated an incident that you find objectionable and more than 90 days has not elapsed, you can file it. Now, suppose more than 3 months has elapsed, there is another window of 3 months that is given to you, but you will have to give a reasonable justification in writing telling the IC as to why you got late. So max to max, you are allowed 6 months. If your complaint is older than that, then it will not be taken up by the IC. Then you have other avenues. You can go to the police, you can go to the court, whatever, and justify your delay over there. Now, as soon as the complainant files a complaint, within 3 months from the date of the incident, a notice will be sent by the IC to the accused person. Now, this will be from within 7 days from getting the complaint, receiving the complaint from the complainant. Respondent has to file his reply within a time-bound manner, and an inquiry will start by the IC. Now, this inquiry needs to be completed within a period of 90 days. Thereafter, if you have any problem with the outcome, management will take an action on the inquiry report, and in case you want to file for an appeal, then within a time-bound manner you need to file for an appeal, either with the management depending upon your service laws, rules, or with the court. Now, what happens once that complaint is filed under the Posh Act? On the filing of the complaint, the woman is given a choice of dealing with the issue either through conciliation or inquiry. Now, this is one other aspect that is available only to the woman. Suppose a lady files a complaint against her male colleague. Once that complaint is forwarded to the colleague, she will be asked once, do you want to sit and talk about it and conciliate, mediate it with the other side, or do you want to go ahead with the complaint? Now, some of you might say कि जब अगर उसको बातचीत ही करनी थी तो पहले ही कर लेती, ऐसे बैठ के करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? But you would, out of experience, I've seen that, suppose a person is behaving in a certain manner which is unacceptable to the woman. She has even told him that, look, I don't like this, but he is not taking the hint. He is still in that mode where he feels इसकी नाम में भी हाँ है. वो कह रहा है भाई I'll win her over. इसको समझ नहीं आ रहा that I am the thing for her. So despite her categorically refusing, suppose he says रोज आज कॉफ़ी पीने चलेगी, आज डिनर करने चलेगी, आज मज़े करने चलेगी. She keeps saying नहीं यार, I am not interested. Take it from me. I can give it to you in writing. He is still not getting the hint. Now she feels totally helpless, and then she files this complaint, and then the IC says कि आपको बात करनी है. या आप आगे इंक्वायरी करेंगे? शी इज़ लाइक देखो मुझे उसको, मेरा ये कुछ नहीं है कि आप उसको नौकरी से निकालो या उसे पनिश करो, मेरा लॉजिक सिर्फ ये है कि मेरा पीछा छोड़ दे ये। अगर आपको लगता है ये आके बात कर ले, मैं आई एम विलिंग टू डू दैट एंड आई वॉन्ट यू टू वॉर्न हिम दैट ही डज नॉट गो अहेड, या ये मतलब आई वॉन्ट यू टू टेक केयर ऑफ दिस। नाउ दिस गाय कम्स एंड ही सेज अरे मेरे को तो लग रहा था ये मेरी फ्रेंड है, मुझे क्या पता था, ठीक है अगर इसको इतना बुरा लगा मैं माफ़ी मांगता हूँ। तो अब आपसे आईसी पूछेगी कि भाई देखो अब तो उसने माफ़ी मांग ली है, आप अपनी कंप्लेंट ख़त्म करना चाहते हो? शी इज़ लाइक ठीक है मुझे और क्या करना है। Then the complaint is closed at that point, right? It does not go ahead, we don't go into the inquiry, this and that, it is closed. Now it so happens that the man is still, हम तो बदलेंगे नहीं, हम शेर हैं। If he goes ahead, well then you reopen that complaint, you file a fresh complaint or whatever, howsoever way it goes, and then you go from there. Now if you say that suppose a woman has filed a complaint, she has said नहीं भाई मुझे कोई conciliation नहीं करनी है, इसकी समझ में नहीं आने वाला है, the guy cannot say कि नहीं नहीं उसे एक बार बुला लो, मैं तो बातचीत करना चाहता हूँ. That option is not available to him as per law. That option is only given to the complainant. Now like I said, two ways of solving the complaint. One is through the inquiry and one is through the conciliation method. Now what is the inquiry procedure? A written complaint is filed. Inquiry procedure should be followed by the internal committee without fail. There should be the first step is the jurisdiction check. Suppose this incident, whatever the woman is complaining of, has happened in her private life outside the workplace, has no connection whatsoever. In that case, it will not fall within the purview of the IC. Then you go ahead and complain to the police. Suppose there was an out of office meet that was organized by the office and this is where the incident happens. Do you think it will be covered by the IC? Yes, because it has happened. Suppose it happens in a cab which is sent by the office, by the cab driver, it will be covered. Suppose it is you've gone for office work outside, it happens there, then you are covered. So jurisdiction check. First you have to meet the complainant, take her statement. Then you have to meet the respondent, take their statement. Then you forward the complaint copy to the respondent. You follow up the complainant on her choice as to whether she wants to go ahead with the inquiry or she wants to go ahead with the conciliation. Then you examine the complainant, the respondent, and whatever witnesses they have produced. You give them an opportunity of cross-examination. If there is any clarification that the IC needs, then the IC can do that also. And there is an optional stage where then IC can call any of the parties or witnesses for their own clarification. Inquiry is conducted and then the recommendations come out. Now the recommendations, sometimes what happens is witness तो कोई होता नहीं है, ऐसी चीज़ कोई आ जाओ सब लोग मैं harass करने वाला हूँ करके तो नहीं करेगा. They will ensure that there is no witness or there is no proof. Sometimes it is, these days it is more difficult. Why? Because we have CCTV coverage in most of the areas and sometimes people forget, कुछ ना कुछ mention कर ही देते हैं WhatsApp पे, right, कि मेरे कल के behavior के लिए मैं sorry हूँ. So inference निकलता है, circumstantial evidence निकलता है. But most of the times it also happens that the IC members are also totally clueless. कोई witness है ही नहीं, it is a case of she says versus he says. So in that ways there is an endeavor that is made to change their sort of setting in such a way that they don't come across each other. अगर एक ही project में काम कर रहे हैं तो अलग अलग कर देते हैं या warning दे देते हैं कि भाई तुम ध्यान रखो, या lady को कह देते हैं कि भाई you be more mindful, whatever it has to be. But end result is that due to insufficient evidence the complaint could not be proven. That is why the case is closed. So something like that. Now अगर एक fake allegation कोई file कर दे, then what? Is there a penalty? Yes. As per the act, there is the same sort of penalty depending upon the gravity of the complaint that has been filed, the kind of evidences that were cooked up, the efforts that were taken to make that complaint look true, seem true. There will be a penalty for the woman also. What kind of penalty? There can be a warning, there can be a demotion, stoppage of increment, a suspension, there can even be a dismissal depending upon again the gravity of the complaint. Now there is another very important thing that the act takes care of, and that is the confidentiality element. The act ensures